welcome to the beautiful grandeur of the seas, somewhere off the coast of Cuba, as we steam. I guess you don't. I don't know if a ship steams anymore, but as we sail, but it's not really a sail. So as we make our way to the Isle of Hispaniola, to the country of Haiti, and I want to say hello and hi to anybody and everybody who might be tuning in or on the video on demand. This is a little bit of a, we'll call it a fairly unusual stream because, of course, I'm in the middle of the ocean. So thank you to StarLink for providing such powerful internet that hopefully we can get some reasonable communication across. Obviously, people are going to start coming in here as we go live. But yeah, I don't know how long we're going to be able to go for. We may have some technical difficulties. There may be some dropouts depending on what the wind and the waves hold. But hopefully we'll have ourselves a nice little stream here. And, again, we're really just doing this because my patrons like to troll me. And, of course, they're supporting the channel with everything that they do. And last week we had a series of tip goals. One was to send Derek on his vacation and not worry about streaming at all. And, of course, the other one was, no, get back to work and make sure you do your live stream. And that one won. But it's all a win for the channel. There's a lot of upgrades that we're still making the final adjustments to our studio so that we can do our awesome, bring back our actual plays. And I'm really, really excited for that. Of course, everyone knows about Root, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse game where you play anthropomorphic animals. We're going to be doing that one starting in May. The studio, finishing up here in the next week or two once I get back. And then on top of that, we're probably going to start a second actual play. I'm considering doing and bringing back Pathfinder 2 as an actual play. I've been having a lot of fun the last couple of weeks. We've been playing Abomination Vaults, and it's just and not taking the game rules too seriously. And I know that sounds kind of crazy because I do believe that Pathfinder 2 is a game that you should take the rules seriously. I mean, that's why we're investing in this. This is why we're investing in this system. It's why we're investing in that much rules text. But at the same time, that's not conducive to me for a long-term successful campaign. I like to be a little bit more flitty-witty with the rules. I like to be loosey-goosey. Again, we've always tried on this channel, for the most part, to play Pathfinder 2 pretty much by the book. Because we think it's going to be the best way for us to be brand ambassadors for the game. I don't want to show people too much of a customized, completely, changed up equation. Don't get me wrong, we had pretty extensive house rules in both Rise of the Rune Lords and in Quest for the Frozen Flames. But for the most part, I still try to, to keep it straight. But, we've been having fun. We've been playing Abomination Vaults. I've been just making a lot of, off the cuff fly, calls and decisions, not taking it very seriously. Interestingly enough, by the way, the reason we've been playing Abomination Vaults in Fridays is because it's just been so difficult for us to get our core group together. And we were like, we're sick of postponing. We want to play our Legend of the Five Rings game, but the Legend of the Five Rings game is a very serious game with a lot of. You want everybody to be there. You don't want anybody to miss a session. You want it to be kind of like an ongoing narrative. And so we said, well, we started Abomination Vaults back when it first came out, and we finished through the first book, which is first 4 levels. We was like, let's bring it back. But we only had 3 players. And I was like, that's fine. It's not exactly right, but the math is such that if you have 3 players that are 1 level higher than 4 players of a given level, it's about the same, experience point-wise. But so we've been playing with 3 players, with them being 1 level higher than they should be, but they have 1 less PC. And I got to tell you, it's been fantastic. Number one, the turns just go that much quicker. PC's turns are probably the most complicated. So having 1 less PC means it goes a lot quicker. Secondly, everybody being 1 level higher means that everybody's critting just that much more. Everybody's hitting just that little bit much more. The sorcerer in the party, who's being played by Smith, is able to hit that, with what feels like a more reasonable rate on their ranged touch attacks. They can use not their highest level spell slot, they can use their second highest level spell slot for incapacitation effects and have it actually make a meaningful and important difference. In some ways, I almost actually wonder if playing Pathfinder 2 with 3 people, 1 level over leveled, is actually a better way to play the game. It's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. So let me give some quick shout outs here. We've got Negative 411 is in the chat. Hello, Negative. Edward P is here. Well, looking forward to the Root stream. Awesome. We're looking forward to playing it. Marvelous Mr. Mean giving me the thumbs up on audio and visual. KC is here asking how the cruise is going. Cruise is going great. We spent yesterday in Key West, mostly just me accompanying my mom. For those of you who don't know, every year we took a break because of COVID, obviously. But every year I take my mom on a cruise or a vacation. We used to do other vacations. Now we just do the cruises because it's a lot easier. It's more self-contained. We can kind of do and see a lot of things without having to like really schedule a whole lot or make a lot of plans. And that way I get, Christmas, birthday, Mother's Day, all out of the way in just one kind of, in one fell swoop. And it's fun for me too. It's a nice way for me to spend, 3 or 4 or 5 days with my mom, but not actually spend 4 or 5 straight days 100% with my mom, which might push any of us over the edge. And I love my mom, and she did a lot for me. So it's nice that I'm able to, as an adult, do these things for her. So this is our annual cruise. She's off in the casino gambling, and I'm here talking to you all, and then we're going to grab dinner afterwards. So it's going to be a pretty great time. So cruise is going great. Key West was a lot of fun. My mom went to a bunch of antique shops. Her and my dad like antiques. She collects vintage Coke bottles. She bought some vintage Coke bottles. She got some souvenirs, friends and her sisters. And then today was just a sea day. And that just means we're just drink as much today. I was a little hungover this morning. And then tomorrow we're in Haiti. And we're going to be at Labadee, which is kind of like a private beach area that Royal Caribbean does. And it's just going to be a beach day for me. I'm just going to kind of bum it up and kind of relax and probably bring some books. I brought both Root books. I brought on my iPad, which I think I have like Traveler. I have Doctor Who, and I think I have Chubos on there, which are all books that I was thinking about reading. And I might even dig into Avatar a little bit. So, just have a fun day, getting some sun and reading. I think it's going to be really great. So, yeah, cruise is going nice. Let's see. Frostjack is here. Says the second campaign should be 4E. Honestly, we're looking at our Patreon survey, but honestly, we really want to do more actual plays. People do like watching us play. They like our, I'm not trying to sound, we're obviously kind of foolish, but we're not. There's that mix, right? Like that I think is sometimes lacking in actual plays. Now, which is to say, there are some people who take it really, really seriously, and it's these very, very complicated, storylines, the critical roles. And then there's people who just play, and that's fine. I like it for us. I like our show because I like it. It's a good balance. It's a mix of kind of the silly and the funny. But at the same time, we take it seriously. Our friend Kaz, who of course was Thrawn the Barbarian, he says, not serious, but sincere. And I think that kind of describes the way that we play the game. That being said, and our recent Patreon poll really showed this. And again, if you're not a patron and you're watching this, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Overwhelmingly, our patrons, and this is how we felt. So it's great that the KOLC members are kind of in alignment with our community. We don't want to do a 60 session or a 30 session or even like a 20 session campaign. We'd really like to do more short duration campaigns, not one shots, but maybe some 3 to 5 session games, maybe some 6 to 10 session games. It's enough that I think you get a real feel for a new system. You get to see a complete storyline and unfold, and you get to see some character development. But you also don't feel priced into, okay, I've got to watch this for the next 8 months, or there's all how many months new game started, by the way. I mean, it seems like a million years ago, but ran Root. He thought it was awesome. I picked it up. I knew the board game, didn't know it was an RPG, read it, loved it, and was like, we're going to run this. I'm going to rebuild the studio as a celebration. And of course, rebuilding the studio, which I thought would take 1 month, has taken 6. So bearing in mind that, we like to be responsive. We like to change. We like to adapt. We like to do new games. And so this, a shorter structure is going to allow us to do more games. And of course, if a campaign is amazing or it's a lot of fun, right, we can always go back to it, right? We're not saying that the campaign's over and done with every time. We might really like those characters, and it might be kind of cool. Think of it more like a series of movies, right? And instead of watching in one go, or all the Avengers movies in one go, which is kind of like your standard adventure path, we can just watch one movie. And then maybe we come back to that group, next year, and we do another movie, which is like, again, maybe 3 to 5 or 7, or maybe even 8 sessions, or 10 sessions. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So definitely looking forward to that. Let's see here. Who else we got here? Rick Sherman is in the chat. He says, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. I've been drinking a lot of rum. In fact, how do I work this thing? Here we go. Boom. There's the drink of choice right now for the live stream. Of course, it's a mojito. One of my favorite drinks. Nice and cool. And of course, with the rum. I love rum while I'm down here. Here's Derek on the S tier ocean, says RPG Music. Roll for Combat is here. He wants Roll for Combat. Steven wanted me to join his stream tomorrow. I said, dude, I'm in the middle of the ocean. He goes, I don't care. It'd be cool. I said, I don't know. It might be kind of a pain in the ass. But I appreciate him wanting me to be on. He said I would be a really great fit for it. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch it live, but apparently we got a good one queued up for tomorrow on Roll for Combat stream. KC says, so do schedules to finally start lining up after the cruise? Actually, as soon as I get back from the cruise, Smith is leaving to go to Disney with his family and some family friends that Aaron is taking with them. And but then when he comes back, schedules seem much, much better. Now, of course, I say that as we are about to hit into convention season. Because Night's the Last Call, me, but also Bob and Aaron, and also a good chunk of our patrons are going to be at Origins, and then I am going to Gen Con. I'm also going to be doing some meetups there. So those are going to be probably 2 interruptions that occur over the course of the summer. But other than that, I think for most part, it should look fine. And of course, eventually we're going to hit the road because we got a table to deliver. Let's see here. Kind of Bushy Beard says, happy to hear from you, but enjoy your time off. Oh, I've been enjoying my time off. I mean, it's honestly, it's almost been kind of hard for me. I was super busy with work the last few months, and this channel has become a much larger part of my life than I would have ever imagined or dreamed or hoped that it would be. And I mean that. I mean, like, I take it, when it was nothing, I didn't feel bad if, if I didn't, I didn't get if I didn't get a video out. But now if I take like a whole week off, I feel like, wow, okay, hey, listen, I've got followers, I've got patrons, they really want to hear from me, and I feel a certain obligation to that. I certainly feel an obligation to you, my viewer, and certainly to people who are tipping and supporting and members of the Patreon. I definitely feel indebted to you. So as much as I like to say that this is a community, and I fully believe me, by the way, if this channel went away, the community would live on. It's nice. It is nice to be able to go on a vacation and step away from some of the day-to-day stuff. So that's been very, very nice. All right, let's see here. Casey wants to know my mom's casino game of choice. Slots queen with a deep bucket of quarters. No, she does play some slots, but no, her favorite table, she likes table games, and she likes to play the table game of Texas Hold'em. Not like, she's played Texas Hold'em. She sometimes joins a poker tournament on the boats. But my mom used to be a dealer at the casino in Cleveland. She did that for after she kind of retired, she kind of got like a part-time job there working like 20, 25 hours a week for like 10, 15 years. Anyway, so she does like the Texas Hold'em table game, which is fun. Let's see here. Gid is here. Welcome. Gid, Rowan. Oh, Gid giving a shout out to Rowan. Rowan number 1. Hey, I'm new to Pathfinder 2nd Edition and your channel, first season, but wanted to say that they love what we've done. Well, fantastic, and I definitely welcome to the community, and I hope you take a look around and see what you like. Let's see. Ryan saying, yeah, I felt I've got like 25 plus 5-hour Critical Role episodes to watch just to catch up on season 3. It feels like an impossible task. Absolutely. And I think we can all agree that even the best actual plays aren't exactly well edited, right? They're not exactly paced well. It's a game, it can be kludgy, it can be slow going, it can be kind of a bear to watch. It's fun to be there live. It's one of the reasons why we really try to make our live streams fun and exciting and popping, because it makes it fun to be there, whether it's with things like Wheel of Pain and Wheel of Destiny, or tipping for certain things to happen, because we want you to feel like you're part of the action. But watching it from the sidelines for that many hours can be just incredibly painful. Roll for Combat says, you are stepped away from the channel. Yes, streaming from the sea is stepping away. Well, listen, fair enough. But, it's much less than I normally would do. I've been on the Discord a lot less. And we aren't going to stream on Thursday. So we're only doing one stream this week. Although, I may stream when I come back because I'm coming back Friday. And so maybe there'll be a stream on over the weekend. So, but I will say the sailing today has been beautiful. The Caribbean is just a fantastic and beautiful ocean. I did see somebody say, rate the ocean's tiering. I can't say that I've been to that many oceans. I've flown over most of them, except for probably the Indian and the Antarctic, maybe. But I will say that, just as a fun side note, my original goal when I used to work for the man at Progressive Insurance Company many moons ago, my goal at that time was to, I don't have kids, no wife. I just save money because I wanted to retire at age 42. Why 42? Simple. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But, it was like an aggressive goal. I set it when I was like 30 or maybe even like 28. And I was like, if I save enough money, I can retire, but like semi-retire. And my goal was originally, I wanted to buy a sailboat. I like to sail, and I've owned some smaller sailboats, but I've never owned like a sailboat you could live on. I've just had day sailors, but I love sailing. I love the idea of sailing. And so I was like, I want to retire, and I want to buy a sailboat, and sail around the Caribbean. I'll sail down there from from February-ish to like the start of hurricane season. And then I'll, get docking for the winter. I'll come home, I'll see friends, I'll see family, I'll get to experience the fall and a little bit of winter and the holidays. And then it's, when the snow and the cold start to get too oppressive, I can head back down to, wherever my boat is docked and, get ready to sail for the next season. And just spend the rest of my life just traversing with a $10 super chat says, for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. Yeah, no, literally, I made one of the most important life decisions at the time. Money was, I was into 401k because I couldn't access that until I was in my 60s. I needed that money at 42. So I was mutual gains in order to be able to access my money at a sooner time. But negative 411 says, I also want to retire at 42, but I'm older than that and still working, though. Well, unfortunately, I ended up, losing that job at Progressive. And I kind of quit, but I got fired. It's more like I didn't do anything for 6 months and then they fired me because I'm a photographer, and then I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And so now my situation is very different, and I still got, some years to go too, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, my priorities in life have changed, but I still think, about the sea and, the ocean very much. It's funny. I have dreamed my whole life, since I was a kid, of doing a fantastic, by the way, I love Tolkien. Everyone goes, Derek loves Tolkien. Tolkien's not my favorite fantasy author, okay? Ursula K. Le Guin is my favorite fantasy author. And I love Wizard of Earthsea, the series, more than anything. It's probably had a bigger impact on me than anything in anything. And for those of you who don't know, Earthsea is a world where it's basically one big archipelago, and it's a series of islands and island chains, and it's this wonderful magical world where seafaring is very, very important. And I have never run a RPG campaign like that, and I just think that idea is so awesome because it basically takes the concept of the starship concept, right? Where each week you can sail to a new planet, or sail your ship to a new planet and have a new series of adventures. And you can make a sandbox in a ship campaign. The ship and the ship's crew as kind of a guiding point, as an anchor for the PC's activities, and give the party that sort of natural home base feel. But then you have this kind of really cool sandbox option where you can go to each island, can have its own little unique flair or flavor. And if you buy a new book or a new module or a new supplement, or you get a new bestiary and it's got some weird monsters, how do I put these into my campaign? Oh, cool. You make some crazy island that's on the other side of the Ruby Sea, and it has legends of X, Y, and Z. And now the players can choose to go sail there and explore it or not. And you can put factions into that world. I don't know why I've never done that. I know that's a good question. But anyways, yeah. Have I ever taken a holiday living on a sailboat? Frostjack, no, I have not. Although I do know that there are, in fact, one of my favorite YouTube channels, which is called Sailing La Vagabond, which is an Australian couple, Riley and Elena, and they basically sail around the world. Well, they just bought a new sailboat, and now their old sailboat is available for like 1 week and 2 week, I think, 1 week and 2 week and maybe 3 week charters where you kind of live on the sailboat, work on the sailboat for a few weeks. And I have thought about doing that just because I think that would be really fun. Shion says, if only someone in the chat was working on an Islands Adventure campaign. Yes. I got it. Listen, Jewel of the Indigo Isles, it's going to be, look, the issue is, I say this with, love in my heart, it is still an adventure path. And, a big part for me of the fun of sailing is just being able to just pick a direction and go, So that's true. Isaiah says, I thought we paid Derek not to stream on vacay. Well, Isaiah, unfortunately, you did, which is great because that's going to help us and help the channel buy new microphones. But other people tip more to have me stream. So here I am going in for it. So, hey, I just want to say thanks. I know we don't really have a whole lot here. But if you do have any questions that you want to talk about, RPG Q&A, I'm sure the quality isn't what it's up to normally, but I am here to answer and talk about any questions that you have. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. If someone has a question, just drop it in chat. Maybe throw it in a super chat, or just if you want to just say no, screw you, I want it for free. I will happily do that. All right, Steven is saying I will love it. It's insane. Okay. Casey says the folks on Thursday are less kind. Yes. I mean, look, it's all good for us. I love being here with you all. I love being able to give back to the community like this. And again, this is fun. It's a quiet night here on the ship. I mean, I'm staying in what's called the Solarium, which is the adults only section. And a lot of people are at dinner right now, but you can see it's just absolutely quiet and abandoned here. There's a couple people on the other side. But this is kind of one of the quietest areas on the ship. And I like to come up here, and this is where I do a lot of my reading. Sometimes I like to be out in the sun and stuff, but sometimes it's nice to be not out in the sun. But this place still has a lot of windows, which makes it really, really, really nice for those purposes. And it's got two nice hot tubs. Most Royal Caribbean ships have a solarium, and this one is no exception. Let's see. Do you prefer an 8P or pre-written adventures or sandbox campaign? So here's the truth. The truth is, and I mean this, I love the old way that campaigns used to be done. Now, okay, maybe not like the super old way. The super old way was that, a GM would craft their dungeon, and that would be their campaign, and that's what they ran. They ran their dungeon, and people would go into it, and. That's fine. That's okay. But what I really loved were modules. I really loved adventures, standalone adventures that took place over, 1 to 2 to 3 levels. And in that, maybe not even, maybe 1 to 2 levels. And within that span, it was designed to be, you could just put it into any area, and you could put an interesting hook, and you could figure out ways to tie it into your existing campaign. And it was just a cool location where adventurers would want to go, because that's what adventurers do. Yes, they do heroics. Yes, they do good. But more than that, they are driven by this desire, this thrill of exploration and adventure. And, kind of, why do we climb mountains? Because they're there. So, Rick, thank you for the $25 tip. I'm sorry if you said something, because we're not running OBS, so I know it's not going to say anything. So, if you said something there, maybe put it in chat. I will happily read it for you. But thank you for the support. If I know you, it said something, probably say something like, thanks, Derek, keep it up. Love the channel. Thank you, Rick. That's very generous of you. Oop, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. So, yeah, I love the idea of modules, because then you can have your campaign. And if you are a little busy, or you really love what an author can do, you can just find modules and you can just drop them into your campaign. This is the premise of Dungeon Magazine. And it was Paizo Publishing who got a hold of Dungeon Magazine and Dragon Magazine. They became the publishers during the late 3rd edition era. And what did they do? They introduced the idea on a grander scale of the adventure path. And that had, I mean, to be fair, like Dragonlance had existed, and there had been instances where you had, maybe 2 or 3 adventures that were sort of linked in the past. But the idea of this monolithic 1 to 20 campaign, because an adventure path is not 6 adventures. It's just one adventure. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? It really is. And so, I think that it's taken over. And I don't know that I love that to its fullest extent. Let me see here. Elijah says, can't stay. Just want to say I like the impromptu stream format. Well, thank you, Elijah. Thank you for stopping by. So, anyways, I really love modules because that way the players can still respond. They can still go somewhere. But as a GM, look, I get busy. And also, too, I love reading other people's cool creative stuff. And I love being like, here is this really cool temple of the Scarab God, and it's kind of got a quasi-Egyptian theme, and it's got this cool idea of this ancient curse, and it's not 20 levels of content. It's not the next 2 years of my life. It's maybe 6 to 8 to 12 tops sessions of play. It's going to get my players 2, maybe 3 levels tops, and it doesn't have like a defined plot. It's just a cool location with cool NPCs, cool monsters, cool encounters, cool treasure. They can go in there, they can look around, and as they go through, they'll kind of peel back the onion layers, discover the history of this place, maybe discover some of the current going on, some of the factions, and then when they're done with it, when they're, within a few months, maybe a few weeks, when they're done with it, it's done. They beat it, they did it, it's over, it's done, on to the next thing. And I like that because then your campaign is much more flexible while still having that, advantage. So, George, cheers. Joey says, when it comes to hex crawl exploration games, do you think it is possible to make the travel itself engaging, or should travel between areas be de-emphasized in favor of the destinations? I think that's a fantastic question, and I know that recently games have come out. The old school way would have said, it's a hex crawl. You're doing each hex one day or one hex at a time. You're going to make random encounters. There's terrain types. That to me always felt like a slog. I think it felt cool. Like the idea of it seems compelling, but it does feel like a slog. Now, some modern games like The One Ring or Against the Dark Master sort of take a slightly different approach where the travel becomes more of a procedural check, right? A test of characters' abilities. I think it's a little bit more compelling test of characters' abilities. I think it's a little bit more compelling because it's quicker and it's easier and it's more of a montage. You can still feel like it be really, really boring, and that can be really, really unfun. The truth of the matter is, what really needs to happen for travel to be interesting is choice. That's all. That's it. Choice. Okay? Like, you can throw in some skill checks there, but if the players have to go from A to B and they have to follow this path, and then you go, well, you have to make these skill checks, that's going to feel very boring because the players didn't make any decisions. On the other hand, if the party decides to go, let's say, through the mines of Moria instead of over Caradaras, then that's an interesting decision. If the party decides that in order to get to the Dark Wizard's Tower, you went through the Forest of No Hope instead of the Hills of Sharp Teeth, that's a decision. And I think decisions are what are the most important part. And I think that's part of the problem with some people when they feel like they're traveling, is it feels like they've lost the ability to make decisions because now they're just plodding along on some hex grid and they don't really feel like they're making anything meaningful. And again, we did a whole video about player agency, and again, how I feel like player agency is what makes this game fun and what makes this game engaging. And even if the choice leads to some interesting skill checks, but I mean, think about different ideas. Like, and again, players should be informed of these ideas. Maybe the woods of Lost Dreams or whatever, Woods of No Hope, maybe the encounters there are very infrequent. It's mostly abandoned. But rumors persist of ancient, powerful, evil spirits. And you're like, okay, so maybe not a lot of encounters, but maybe if we do encounter something, it could be really, really bad. Whereas the Hills of Sharp Teeth are overflowing with goblin warrens. and you're probably almost assuredly going to run into goblins, but we've run into goblins before, right? And so again, it makes it much more interesting, I think, in that respect. Because you get to make decisions. Frostjack says, I really like point crawls for exploration, give the players choices, but doesn't get too bogged down in the details. Honestly, that's probably the best compromise, I think, than the straight, true hex crawl. I think the only time a hex crawl really works is if it's in a very limited, like, oh, you're going to hex crawl this valley. You're going to hex crawl the Isle of Dread. Just having, here's your campaign world, go. That, I think, is a very difficult, and I think probably boring procedural thing to do. Let's see here. George Harris says, you can also add a ticking clock to give a sense of urgency. Oh, absolutely. Like, in any of these worlds, or any of these sandboxes, or any of these hex crawls, there should be other things going on, right? Like, yeah, like the goblins are in the hills of Sharp Teeth, but there's also a goblin warlord or an ogre warlord who is, enslaving the goblins and forcing them into an army, and he's going to destroy them. And yeah, if the players just ignore that area completely, something should happen. Like, the effect of the world should always come back to the players for sure. Let's see. Casey, was my realization... Okay, sorry. Casey said, I love modules so much more, but I did a survey for my players after several years of play, and they ranked all the campaigns where I ran pre-written adventures at the top. Was my realization that they were just along for the ride. Ask them why, and they said making meaningful choices was too stressful and hard. I think that's a real important takeaway. A lot of the things that I'm talking about are coming out of my experience with role-playing games and my desire for a role-playing game. And what I want is a very, very player-driven, interactive, dynamic environment. I play RPG games because I want to, I want to experiment and tinker. I'm like a mad scientist. I want to put different characters in different, even when I'm a player, I want to put different characters into different situations, and I want to see what kind of weird science is going to come out of it, what kind of new revelations, what kind of interesting story beats. But I do understand that can be very stressful, and I think that a lot of players are very passive. They just want to be participants in sort of a video game where, they're asked to make decisions. You occasionally have to push the buttons in combat in order to, advance to the next part of the story. But for the most part, you're there to sort of be taken along on the ride. And that's, I think, I think that's very fair. And I think if you're okay with that, KC, then I think that's totally fine. I think that's a totally legitimately fine way to play. And in fact, I would say that games like Pathfinder 2 are really good for that kind of gameplay style, because what's so critical to that kind of gameplay style is things like super balanced combat rules, and things like making sure that no character options are too broken or too powerful or too weak. You want everybody to feel like they, can participate at the same level, despite not really maybe having to be like an expert in the game. And you certainly don't want to create a situation that's unfair for them, because if they're quote unquote following the rails, then it's up to you to make sure that those encounters that they experience are fair and balanced, because otherwise you're just kind of being a dick. GM Rufus with a $25 tip says, I love that movie. I actually met Alex Winters once, and he was really awesome. I don't know why that just popped into my head, but obviously he played Bill from Excellent Adventure. But anyways, thank you, GM Rufus, for that. That is very, very nice. So yeah, I think that's interesting. All right, RPG with DBJ says, level up A5E, the thing from Ian World, has journey rules. PCs pick a role: scout, busk, rob, journal, and have variable success and failure. Boons and discoveries are small gifts along the way. Yeah, that's kind of basically the way that Powered by the Apocalypse did it. With their journey rules, if you go back to Dungeon World, I should say, not Powered by the Apocalypse, but Dungeon World, I think that's really, I think that's a simple way to do it. But again, I would need to look into it. But Dungeon World still felt like you weren't really making a ton of decisions, unless it was like, like I'll give you an example. I tried to make exploration interesting in our Quest for the Frozen Flame games by stealing from the Battlestar Galactica board game. And in the Battlestar Galactica board game, each round the players have to encounter a new challenge. And sometimes the challenge is a test, like basically a skill test, and sometimes it's just a choice that the players have to make. And when it's a choice that the players have to make, there's 4 resources in the game, and if any one of them goes to 0, you lose the game. But like sometimes the choices will be things like, do you ration your food, which will give you more food and water availability, but it will lower morale because people are upset, or do you not do that, and the morale goes up, but the food and the water go down? So I think that it's important to still make sure that there's sort of meaningful mechanical choices that are happening as a result of that. And I think that's kind of an important element there as well. Let's see. One thing I was thinking about, these are just ideas that I've had while I was on the cruise that I just kind of want to talk about, which is one thing I want to do a video about, or maybe a full live stream about, is class design and how classes are designed. Because I've noticed a trend in Pathfinder 2 a little bit, which is, I think there's like 2 different ways that you could think about designing classes for an RPG. One is that the classes are kind of like pretty much the same. 4th edition was probably the best example of this. Every character class kind of used the same format, and they used the same progression of powers. Everyone got a feat at the same time. Everyone gained hit points. Yeah, sure, there were differences. Some classes gained more hit points than others. But it was a very, very similar chassis across the different classes, which meant you could play a fighter, and then you could go play a wizard, and they really weren't that different. Now, they might have very different powers, but how they used those powers and how you gained them was very, very much part of a boilerplate template. And then you have the kind of the opposite of that, where kind of each class is like its own sub-mechanic. And so, like, where, like, the way that this class works totally different from the way that any other class works. If you want to play this class, it's like you need to learn how to play this class's system. It might have resources or powers or functionality that is very different from anything else that you see in the game. To a certain extent, you start to see this with some of the later classes of Pathfinder 2, right? Swashbuckler has to manage Panache. Magus has to manage their spell strike, right? So some of these things are starting to kind of creep up into the game a little bit as complexity gets added. But I oftentimes wonder, is that just needless complexity for complexity's sake, just to make classes feel different? In other words, do they really need that different system to feel compelling and to feel different? And which design, in a sense, is more elegant? Is it more elegant to create one set of resources, one set of progression, and then just change the way that those classes interact with that, or to have each class kind of be its own vertical silo, to have its own set of abilities? And I think it's kind of an interesting idea. Now, there's areas where Pathfinder 2 obviously took sort of the middle ground approach, right? Like focus points are a great example of sort of a middle ground approach. It's a common resource that's shared amongst all the classes, but obviously classes are using them, to cast focus spells. But those focus spells can be very, very different things. And I think ultimately that's a design that I personally liked the most. I think that has some fun flexibility, and it was cool to see classes like the Psychic, which really sort of used an existing resource, focus points, but interacted with them in a very novel and exciting way that we hadn't really seen before. And so that's the kind of stuff that I really think is interesting from a game design perspective. Let's see. Steven says, class design. Mark either designed all the classes or had a pass on all the classes. Sounds like an upcoming topic for RFC. Well, I would happily be on that one. I think that would be a fantastic discussion. And I would love to have Mark's input on that because, goodness knows he's the GOAT. Well, sun's going down here on the lovely Caribbean Sea tomorrow. We're at the beach. Anybody else? Any questions? Thank you, GM Rufus. Thank you, Rick S. Thank you, great role-playing Debbie. Again, I don't think we're going to go for the full 2 hours. I don't know if my phone battery can even handle it. But, I'd like to go for at least an hour tonight. I've been thinking about class design. some other elements as well. Why haven't I ever run a C campaign? I've also been thinking about. I kind of think when I was a kid, I sort of thought that talking in the first person was like the sign of a true role player, and like even like the second edition D&D Dungeon Master Guide or Player's Handbook kind of like made it seem like, oh, do you see, as the players get more into their character, they start using pronouns like I instead of my character. And I always thought that that was like the mark of like of the highly evolved role playing game. But one of the things I've realized lately is I kind of prefer the third person point of view, because oftentimes the dialogue, even when I say it, is kind of cringy. I mean, there's moments on Rise of Rune Lords and, on Quest for the Frozen Flame, they're kind of cringy to watch because, we're trying to basically read a script, but that doesn't exist. We're just trying to make it up as we go through it. It's tough, right, when you're at a role-playing game table. And sometimes I think the most important part is, sometimes people don't get what you're trying to say. And I think sometimes it's more clear, instead of being like, saying something in first person and being like, you are the betrayer. No, just say like, all right, Rognar, my character, is very upset, and he tells off the party and lets them know that he's very, very, very upset at them and feels like they've betrayed his trust, right? Like, I think there's parts of me that feel like that is a better way to communicate your ideas, or at the very least, you can speak in first person. You can say what you're going to say, but then I feel like you should like addendum that with like brackets and say, I'm going to tell you, Derek, the player, is going to tell you what's going on. I want to make sure that you, the other players at my table, and my game master, understand what I'm trying to say here. Because using my kludgy words and, listen, I consider myself to be lucky obviously I'm an exempt Bob from this, but I consider myself lucky to play with players who for the most part are pretty good at coming up with extemporaneous dialogue. I don't think I'm too bad at it myself. But like I said, it's a tough thing to ask people to do that. And I think that causes people to want to not say anything because they go, I don't know how I would say this in the first person. And I'm like, no, that's not, you're missing the point. I don't really care what your character says in the first person. I want to know, what does your character think or feel or want to say? I think that's much, much better. I think as a group, we can all collectively imagine what is being said. And yes, sometimes there's going to be words that come out, but instead of expecting people to just bust off soliloquies and these epic dialogue, set conversational pieces, I think it's much safer and easier to promote this idea that you should be describing things in the third person. And that's a great opportunity, too, for you to, get across concepts like how your character is feeling and how your character is thinking. And that, I think, lets people feel like they know who your character is more. And I think that's missing in so many role-playing games that I see being played locally or on the internet or even within the Knights of the Last Call community. I feel like people just have no impression of who these characters are and what they care about or what they think. That's definitely one of the like that's something I really want to do with this Root campaign as a challenge to my players and also to my audience. Is like, I want you to come and walk away from this and be like, do I feel like I know these characters? Do I feel like these characters stand out for me as being uniquely different from the players who are playing them? Because I think that's a really cool objective. Let's see here. So John is new to the channel. Discovered our channel through the Rules Lawyer. Yeah, we love Ronald over here. If I could ask you for advice, how would you feel about defined rewards for roleplay? For example, finishing a PC's character arc and getting mental boosts. I love giving rewards for role-playing. After all, John, as I always say on this channel, what gets rewarded gets repeated. Whatever you as a GM choose to reward, whether that's rewarding with treasure, rewarding with experience, rewarding with boons, rewarding with boosts, rewarding with anything, you are sending a clear signal to your players. I like what you're doing. Here's a treat. I want to see more. If that's what you care about and that's what you want to promote, then that is absolutely what you should be rewarding. Now, Pathfinder 2 is very strictly balanced. So you have to be aware of the fact that if you give out a lot of rewards, potentially you could throw the game off a little bit. And if anything, probably one of the things that I dislike the most about Pathfinder 2, in a sense. The game is so well balanced. It's a very rigid game that I sometimes feel like it loses flexibility, right? Something that becomes more rigid becomes more brittle, typically. Diamonds are the strongest material on Earth, but they shatter, they don't bend. So I feel like sometimes Pathfinder 2 doesn't bend as well as I'd like it to in certain circumstances, and that is definitely one of them. So you do have to be a little bit aware of that. Let's see here. Let's see. KC says, I'm really coming around on super siloed class design that allows features to be unique. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm okay. Like, one of the things I really like, actually, if you're going to use class-based design, this is one thing I do say. If you're going to use class-based design, then make those classes unique. Make those classes siloed. Like, I do really like the idea that, like, this character can do this thing. It's not something that you can go splat. Like, the modern-day trend of just everybody using free archetype and then basically becoming this, like, Swiss Army knife character, don't like it. That's anathema to what class-based design is, in my personal opinion. If you're going to use class-based, like, there are games that you can do where that's fine, but if you're going to use class-based design, do it right. Frostjack, how much are the drinks costing you? Well, Frostjack, that is unfortunate, because here's the deal with Royal Caribbean. And this is true for Carnival and all the major cruise lines, you can buy an all-you-can-drink package, and it costs you about $80 a day, $90 a day. Now, this drink is going to cost you about $12 without tip. So in order to get your money's worth, you need to have about 6 or 7 drinks a day, which, if you're partying and having fun, you're going to spend probably that much. So that's fine. The problem is they changed their rule. And I used to do that, by the way. And the problem is they changed their rule. And now, if you are rooming with someone, which almost everyone is, I'm rooming with my mom. She does not drink. But if you're rooming with someone, if you get the drink package, they got to get the drink package. So, because too many people were probably splitting it between 2 people. So I have been buying these a la carte for about $12, coming out to about $14 or $15 with which is cheaper than Vegas. So there's that. Let's see here. What do we got going on? Greece. Isaiah has clearly knows their stuff about cruises. True, but I oftentimes still find out that, like, not every game is up to that. Listen, I think everybody can learn GM. I think GMing is hard, but I don't think every GM is ever going to be some voice artist or ventriloquist or whatever, stand-up performer. Like, it could be really, really tough to do that stuff. And to make an NPC seem different just through your voice and through the words choices that you're making, I think it's very, very difficult. I think spending some more time using third-person descriptions, I think could go a really long way. Especially if you pick, like, 1 or 2 adjectives and you just constantly keep reinforcing that. Walks with a pronounced limp. Walks with a pronounced limp. He slides over to you, struggling because of his pronounced limp, right? Like, you can really just keep beating home these 1 or 2 or 3 traits about an NPC to really make them stand out in the party's mind. And then they'll be like, oh, yeah, we remember the bartender with the pronounced limp. And it's like, cool, you have succeeded. If they can remember the bartender with the pronounced limp, you've done a really, really good job. Let's see here. George says, when I play Pathfinder Society as a player, I'll ask the other players to describe their character instead of asking for ancestry, heritage, class, and subclass. It gets people in the mood for role-playing. Playing your class and ancestry is important to role-playing as well. But, yeah, ideally, in an ideal world, role-playing should be more than just what your stats on your sheet are, right? Bruno says, I find that PF2E is actually pretty resilient. I usually give items 2 to 3 levels above the level, and it doesn't seem to hurt too much. Well, Bruno, that's interesting. I have seen the opposite effect. I think getting items that are a couple levels higher than you can be really, really powerful in this game. But, hey, yeah, especially consumables. Forbes is here. Welcome, Eric. I heard praises for free archetypes, so I tried it my first game, and so far I don't love it. I was wondering about rewarding specific archetypes as options for roleplay, so it's a little more restricted. I've kind of come around. I originally said that archetype was the best thing ever for Pathfinder 2, and now I'm kind of off of it, honestly. Maybe if you're literally specifically doing like the pirate theme campaign and everybody gets the pirate archetype, I guess. But even then, I don't think I like it. I've kind of come around to it. It makes it... The game is already too easy in most instances, and free archetype just makes it way too easy. So, I definitely agree with... Frostjack just tipped $15. Have a drink on me. Thank you, Frostjack. I will. I'll get another one after this one. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Dan says, I used to think I liked sailing until I did it and realized the ocean is horrifying. Yeah, Dan. I mean, I respect the hell out of the ocean. I'm sitting here right now. That's just like, the dark abyss of nothingness. And that's the Caribbean. That's not like something like the Atlantic or, God forbid, the Pacific. I've ever done any sort of big water crossing like that on a sailboat. I've sailed around the Gulf of Mexico. That's about the limit. And yeah, I don't know. I wonder if, but again, I never really made any plans to do any sort of ocean going voyages or crossings. I was just like, I'm just going to sail around the Caribbean, where you're never more than maybe a few hundred nautical miles away from some island or something. Nolan Voice says, what didn't you love about free archetype? I was considering allowing it for a one shot. I'm planning on running for some friends soon. Yeah, so what it really comes down to, Null and Void, is the fun part. The fun part of Pathfinder 2 is making feat choices, right? And so the idea is, if I give them free archetype, they get to make more feat choices, so it's more fun. But the truth of the matter is, you want the players to feel like, I got to make a real decision here. If I want this dedication and I want these additional powers for my free archetype, then I have to be willing to give up features from my class. And when I first joined Pathfinder 2, I was sort of under a different impression, which was that class feats really mattered. But as we have played the game more and more and more, class feats are fine, class feats are fun, but they are hardly necessary. The game makes sure that your features, the ones that you don't get to pick, pretty much let you do what your class needs to be able to do. You could be a barbarian and never take a barbarian feat, and you'd still function pretty dang well as a barbarian. Yes, there are a couple of class feats that really do manage to boost your power level, but for the most part, by and large, they're flavor, not substance. And so giving free archetype is sort of you don't need to do it. If a player is a sorcerer and they want to pick up champion dedication, then let them, but that's going to mean that they don't get to get all their cool sorcerer feats. That's just the cost of making it. Make it a real decision instead of an auto include. And I think that makes sense to me. I like for people to make tough decisions. See, Edward says, a negative says, I never said it was easy. You could just help immersion. Okay, negative. We're in agreement. Free dedication rewards typically just per champion. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that's we had a little hit there. Pretty impressed here. Chris Hansen. Not gonna lie, a little disappointed people voted to make you work on your vacation. Well, Chris, listen, I appreciated all the support that everybody gave us. It was a fantastic week for us streaming because of those dedications and donations. And whether people really wanted me to be live because they like seeing me or they like torturing me, or they wanted me to enjoy my vacation, either way, it's really great for the channel. It's really, really, honestly, quite humbling for me to have that kind of support from people. And so I really appreciate it. I know you were trying to get me, give me a vacation. But the good news is, Chris, I'm streaming tonight. We're going to be wrapping up here in the next, 10, 15 minutes. And then I'm not streaming on Thursday. I am actually taking the rest of the trip off. I'm going to enjoy my beach day tomorrow. It's going to be great. So yeah, getting paid either way. And again, we've got some new microphones to buy. So it was really nice that everybody was able to come out and throw some support our way. We've got the self-confessed cynic himself here, Vin. Over under on how many pounds you gained this week. Great question. I haven't been eating as much sweets or as much food at the buffets as I usually do. I think I'm somewhat conscious of me trying to actively lose weight. That being said, there's been a lot more pasta and carbs in general that I normally eat. I don't normally eat pasta or bread really too much. I'll eat rice. That's about the only thing I'll eat. but a lot more carbs. And so I'm imagining I'm going to gain some water weight. I'm going to guess that like the scale is probably going to read like +5 or +6. But reality is I'm going to say that I probably am going to overeat somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 1,000 calories a day, including the alcohol, for 4 days. So, maybe, we'll call it 1 pound to 2 pounds of maybe tops of like actual weight gain. So should be able to make that back in a week, especially with some of I got the new gym that I'm setting up. And of course, my doctors finally, after many years, prescribed me testosterone because I have a thyroid stimulating hormone issue in my pituitary gland and something crazy. My testosterone's been really low for a long time, so hopefully that will also help in my journey. Self-confessed cynic says non-FA sucks. This is blasphemy. Well, listen, you're one of those people who wants a more powerful character. Rick, take care, buddy. I will talk to you soon. Thank you for being on the stream. Thank you for supporting me, buddy. I also think that free archetype can either add no power to a character or it can add a lot of power to a character. I've seen those sorcerers who pick up champion dedication for almost essentially free on free archetype, and then maybe get a rogue feat or two, and like those characters are much more powerful than other characters. And also too, like the fact that with free archetype, anybody with a decent charisma or a decent stat can like spend 4 or 5 feats, not of their class feats, but of their free archetype feats, and basically pick up an entire spellcasting class. It really is a lot of power, and the advantage that you get from a dedication that enables you to cast cantrips, which means now you have access to scrolls, like that's very big deal. And like I don't think people fully appreciate how much of a power boost that is, for sure. Let's see. Frostjack says, couldn't be me, I love frickin' pasta. Pasta is life, says Isaiah, but man, not great for weight. No, for sure. I used to do paleo for a long time when I was like really super fit. I know it's hard to believe that I used to be really super fit, but I used to be really super fit. I used to run, God, how much did I run? I used to run like 20, 30 miles a week, which isn't like crazy amount, but I mean, I was running, 3, 4, 5 miles a day, depending on the day of the week, and lifting, and I was paleo, and I did CrossFit and all this other stuff. And when I did that, carbs weren't a part of that lifestyle. And I eventually got off of that, but that has stuck with me. I just don't go to it. It's just not my go-to. Like if I'm out somewhere and like someone has pizza, I'm gonna eat the pizza. But I don't make pizza for myself at home. I don't keep pasta in the house. That kind of stuff. Actually, if the self-confessed cynic is here, I've been struggling with my weight the last couple of years, really since the time you all have seen me. COVID was really bad for me, and I stopped going to the gym, and all that. Depression, and my business was failing, and blah blah blah. I'm not trying to make light of it. It did really suck. And so I kind of gave up on certain things. I was eating a lot more, eating unhealthily, and then again, I've had these ongoing medical issues involving my testosterone levels and my thyroid stimulating hormone levels. Anyways, long story short, I gained 70 pounds. I was probably 220, 225 before COVID and all that other stuff. So yeah, pushing up towards 300 as we got above COVID, or past COVID. So that's a lot of weight for me to gain in just a relatively short amount of time. And so I've been really serious about trying to get back into it. I've invested several $1,000s in a home gym, and been seeing a lot of doctors. So I'm actually going to be very focused on my health and my fitness for the rest of the year, and the rest of my life. But this year especially, to try to really get back to where I want to, where I was and where I want to be. Especially as I go into my 40s, I want to be in the best shape I can. And some of the patrons, including Self-Confessed Cynic, have been like, dude, you should totally vlog that or do something. And so they call it Gym Night. And I think we're going to do that. I think it'll be on probably a separate channel. It will be very, very off the cuff. It'll be stuff like this. But I have a pretty solid understanding of sports fitness and nutrition. I've read a lot of books for a long time. when I was really, 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 really into it. And I think we should have some pretty good conversations that are separate from RPGs. So RPGs are going to, stay the main focus here, obviously. But keep an eye out because the Gym Night channel is coming, and we can talk about health and fitness and try to get some people motivated, and also, quite frankly, honestly, just motivating me. I could use it. You all are fantastic cheerleaders, incredible support group, and I think any content creator would tell you the same, that the community is really what supports them and buoys them up. We have a fitness, health, and gains channel in our private Discord for our patrons, and we've got some seriously great advice being handed out there, not from me, but from some of our other people. I chime in when I can, but there are people in there who are basically certified personal trainers giving people full dietary guidelines, full routines, and I've taken a look at them and I nod approvingly. I said, this is a good, well thought out routine. So I love the idea of just like the Knights community getting healthier together, because the longer I can stay healthy, the longer I can play RPGs, and that's kind of where I'm kind of going with that. Edward says we should check out red lentil pasta. I've had some of the higher protein pastas before that weren't necessarily made with durum wheat, made with things like lentils or chickpeas or some other stuff. It's not for me. I don't like it. I'm one of those, if I'm going to eat pasta, I'm going to eat pasta, and I'm going to be okay with that. But for the most part, I'm okay. I don't feel like I'm giving up anything when I avoid that kind of stuff. Anyways, all right, everybody. I think... my little timer here is telling me we've been going for about an hour, so I'm supposed to meet my mom for dinner before the buffet closes. My mom, okay. Between me and you, the one thing that I do not like about going on these trips with my mom, I love my mom to death, okay, but I've gone on cruises in the past, usually with, now ex-girlfriends, but girlfriends, and the one thing that sucks the most is my mom is kind of a picky eater. And on cruise ships, they have a fantastic dining room with a great menu with some beautiful, real, honestly, gourmet choices that are available to you. And it's all a la carte. I mean, it's all not a la carte. It's all whatever you want. You can order whatever you want. You can order 5 of something. It doesn't matter. It's all paid for on your cruise. But my mom, she doesn't like the fancy food. If something says herb crusted, she's not going to eat it. If something says, thyme infused or lemon parsley infused, she's not going to eat it. So we don't usually go to the fancy dining room. We usually just go to the sort of generic quasi-American style food buffet, which is still very lively, and it's got some really nice choices, and they always they have some nice Indian choices and some Chinese choices. They had pad thai the other day, which was really, really good. And so I love my mom to death, but the one thing that I really do not like about cruising with her is that when we eat, we always end up at the buffet instead of the really nice restaurant that technically we're paying for as part of our cruise, and it is kind of unfortunate because I really do like the food on here, and so definitely need to get on one of these cruises with somebody else so that I can enjoy the thing. But again, it's all for the mom, so I'm not complaining too much, and I would never say anything to her, but it is the one major drawback. All right, everybody. I will say hi to my mom for you all, and we're going to enjoy the rest of the vacation here. Like I said, we're going to be in Haiti tomorrow. Fun in the sun. We're also going on an evening sail around part of the island. Like 15 people basically on a catamaran and nice little sail. It's going to be really, really nice. So really enjoying that. Looking forward to that. And then the next day, just another day like today, just quiet contemplation, probably going to be doing a lot of reading. I'm sure I'll be chatting with people on the Discord. But for the most part, I'm just going to kind of enjoy, catch up on some books, maybe read some nonfiction. Read some fiction, which I have not done in a long time. So I'll be back maybe later this week when I'm back in Cleveland, Ohio, base camp. But definitely next week. So thanks again to everybody who supports this channel. If you're interested in joining us and you want to be part of this awesome community, check us out. Links are in the description below. We can also go to patreon.com/Knights of Last Call, and you can see our different options there. Lots of cool stuff happening there. Private Discord, because, we like to keep our community pretty much restricted to people who are really invested, and that has really worked out really well for us. It's one of the best communities that I know of, and it's certainly the largest private Patreon community that we exist on the Pathfinder 2 and sort of related RPGs. And that's the other important part. If you're here for Pathfinder 2, but you really like other RPGs, check us out because we talk about those as much as we talk about Pathfinder 2. For everybody else, thank you for the support. Thank you for the tips and the super chats. Thank you for everyone who voted with their wallets to get me to do this stream. And thank you for everybody who voted with their wallets to not get me to do this stream. I certainly appreciate your donations, and I also definitely appreciate your well wishes. And for that, I think that's going to do everything. So on behalf of myself, I'll say thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Bye. All right.